from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley. With convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut, visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org.
WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and I am in Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy. We're broadcasting live. Pete, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, this is a little bit of a different setup because I really can't see Pete from where I am. I'm so used to having him right across the board from me. So, Pete, just so that you know, you're going to have to, when we go on air, raise your hand because that's the only way I can see it. Otherwise, I'm not really sure what you're doing over there on that side of the board. But anyway, it's fun to be here. And, Pete, I have to say, I haven't been in the studio, I think since before the holidays. So a lot has changed here. We have this phenomenally long table, which I love because I can really spread out. I was really nervous about the microphones because the last time I were here, you couldn't move them around.
Right.
And the chairs I was worried about the chairs because they were, sort of the older, you can't move those around either. But we have really great chairs that are on wheels that we can move around, and the microphones we can move all over the place. So
right, we're getting there.
Yeah, it's really shaping up. So this is kind of fun. We have a great show this morning. Our resident chiropractor, Dr. Gary Gorman, I just saw him pull in. I saw him pull into the parking lot, pull out of the parking lot, and then pull back in. I know this is his first time here.
Right. He hasn't been to 120 yet.
No, he hasn't been to 120, and I think that he was looking for my car, which is really tucked way in the corner because I wasn't sure where I was allowed to park. But anyway, we are here at Pete's new studio, so we're excited to be here. So first hour, we have Dr. Gary Gorman with us, and second hour, we have Anna Marie Golden with us. Anna Marie was here back in February talking about Bay State Noble Hospital's Community Health Needs Assessment, which had just gotten underway this winter. And we are now at the point where they have gathered a lot of information, and they're going to be sharing that with the community and with the public at a special
So that's
program.
the big reveal.
Yeah, so that will be the big reveal, and they're doing the big program at the Senior Center in a couple of weeks. So I know Anna Marie wanted to come on, talk about that, invite people to that event and so forth. So she will be here at 7:15. So we have a lot going on. And it is June 5th, so we have to start out by saying it is National Moonshine Day. How do you like that? So we have not observed National Moonshine Day yet on WSK, but every June 5th, National Moonshine Day is observed. This beverage has a notorious record of blurring the lines of history and the law, turning ordinary men and women into criminals and common criminals into legends. Moonshine traditionally is an illegally distilled spirit. Mostly made from corn mash, moonshine is a distilled whiskey that is typically produced by an individual illegally without a permit. Also known as White Lightning, Mountain Dew, Homebrew, Hillbilly Pop, Rot Gut, and way too many more to list here. Now, Prohibition distilling skills first came to the United States during the 1830s with the Scotch-Irish as they settled in Virginia. Gary's not on. He's not mic'd up yet, but leave it to those Irish, Gare.
Yay.
Temperance laws and prohibition legislation were passed in several states before the Civil War, but it wasn't until after the turn of the century that the temperance movement picked up steam. By the time the 18th Amendment was ratified early in 1919, over half the country was dry. Prohibition lasted 13 years. It created a demand for moonshine unlike any that may have existed before, and moonshine became big business overnight. Now, modern moonshine is a little bit different. These days, moonshine in the legal sense has a following. Small batch distilleries are producing legal moonshine, bringing moonshine out of the woods and going up against other whiskeys for a place on the shelf. Many are packaging their home brews in canning jars, embracing their rich history while at the same time experimenting with flavor and branching out with food pairings similar to that of wine and beer. Now, here's a little trivia for you for National Moonshine Day. The X's on the moonshine jugs symbol represents the number of times a batch was run through the still. If it's marked XXX, it means the moonshine is pure alcohol, so be careful. And during Prohibition, there were many ways to transport bootlegged moonshine. Faking a funeral was a convenient ruse to move the product. Out of respect for the dead, of course, those with the badge, our men and women in blue, were reluctant to stop a funeral procession. So what a great way to run your moonshine.
Well, that was also the biggest thing that it was the birth of NASCAR, was the moonshiners.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah. All those guys souped up their cars to beat the cops, and then that kind of developed into racing and stuff like that. That was the birth of NASCAR, was the old moonshiners.
I did not know that. So there's Pete with just a little trivia for
what I usually do around here.
Exactly, for my National Moonshine Day. And now this is like the opposite of National Moonshine Day. June 5th, the first Wednesday in June, is also National Running Day. So National Running Day was created in 2009 and is held the first Wednesday in June. Among its organizers are the New York Road Runners, Boston Athletic Association, Running USA, and USA Track and Field. The day was created to shine a light on the many ways in which running improves lives and society. It is a coast-to-coast celebration of a sport and activity that's simple, inexpensive, and fun, especially if you do it with someone else, or if you do it in a really nice setting, like on the bike, on the bike trail. Yep. A lot of nature there.
Something scenic.
Absolutely. It's the perfect way for longtime runners to reaffirm their love of running, and for beginners to kick off a lifetime and life-changing commitment. All those couch to 5Kers.
Yeah, sure.
And did you know that running was the most important athletic event during the first Olympic Games in 776 BC? A cook named Carabos won the 200-yard stadium race. That's what it was called. It wasn't called the 200-yard dash. It was called the stadium race. He was crowned with an olive wreath. The official National Running Day website suggests 10 different ways to celebrate the occasion. These include creative ideas like change happy hour into running hour and choose a running resolution. So all good things to do on this June 5th, first Wednesday of June, for National Running Day. So there you have it. We have Moonshine Day and Running Day. So
there you go.
You can, you can go for a run and then drink a little moonshine. How's that? Does that work for you?
Okay.
Okay. So, Pete, speaking of moonshine,
yes.
And were you at the Brewfest on Saturday?
I did the sound for Brewfest, so I was there for all the whole thing, set up the whole deal. Kenny was monumental and helped me change over bands and stuff like that. We had a blast.
How many bands were there?
We had 4 bands that donated an hour each.
Wow. Very
so we
nice.
I
understood from Patrick before the event last week, from Patrick Berry, because of course it was in his parking lot over at the Westfield News Group. So was there a good crowd? Big crowd?
They had 750 paid.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they expected, I think last year they had about 400, 450.
Yeah.
And it was packed the entire time.
Wow,
so it was
because
great.
Patrick had said he he thought it was going to be about 500, and he said already that's going to be a big crowd.
It was a lot.
So I think
It was packed.
Yeah,
And they had
I understand that next
30
year. Patrick thinks next year they're going to have to find a bigger venue.
38 brewers had signed up, and
Wow.
2 backed out at the last minute, and there was plenty of beer. So
But still,
yeah,
Well,
great vendors, 4 food trucks. I mean, they did a good. I think it's perfect for the spot that it's in. Honestly,
really.
yeah.
You don't
'Cause
think
if
it's
it
too
gets
small? You don't think
too big, then
Yeah.
it becomes a problem. Now it becomes has
Yeah.
the potential for getting out of order.
Yeah.
But everybody
Okay.
was great. The
Okay.
weather was good. I think it was really a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, I will take your thoughts and your input to Patrick this morning when we have
Yeah.
breakfast together at Soup's On. So on Saturday afternoon, while you were drinking, not drinking beer, but while you were
I was doing a little drinking
okay,
beer,
you were
yeah.
doing that. While you were participating in the Brewfest, I was at the Senior Center because we had the Faces of Westfield, the opening of the art show with the
Right.
Westfield High School, which I have to say was really pretty spectacular. So kudos to the Promise students who did the interviews and the art students who did the artwork. They did either created portraits of the people who they interviewed. This
Right.
was all Faces of Westfield. So they interviewed just a wide variety of people with different backgrounds, different experiences who live in the city, or they took pictures of them. They did photography work, and the person who helped them with the photography, I can't recall his name, but he owns a studio up in Southampton, and he attended the show. They had this wonderful booklet that they created with the interviews and some of the artwork in it, which I have a few copies at the Senior Center in the Fireside Lounge on the coffee table, because it is kind of a
Okay.
coffee table book. We had a nice showing of people who came, and it was really a lovely event. And I wanted to say, and I got to find my cheat sheet here. It's called Hopes and Dreams, the Faces of Westfield Art Show. We opened at the Senior Center on Saturday, June 1st in the afternoon. So that's where I was, and Mary Lou was there. And for June 6th and 7th, so that's tomorrow and Friday, it will be at the Westfield High School Library. So if anybody didn't catch it. And then starting June 9th, it will be at the Robert Floyd. That was the name of the photographer. It'll be at the Robert Floyd Photo Gallery in
Cool.
Southampton. And there's an opening reception on Sunday, June 9th from 1 to 5. And then it will be there through the 16th. And there will be a closing reception on the 16th from 1 to 5. So it'll be June 9th, and then June 11th and 12th, and then June 16th. So you'll have lots of opportunities to see the amazing work that the students did. And I know, they spent really the entire last semester working on this project, because we've been working on it with Kristen over at the high school since, I think, January.
Yeah,
in
that was
terms
that-
of just coordinating things.
Was that like a key club thing, or
It's the Promise students, Pete, and those are
Okay,
students
right.
that are taking a Westfield State University course at the
Right.
high school, and instead of a one semester course, they took it over the course of the year.
right?
These are all students who are promising students. That's why it's called the Promise program. So they're all students that have a lot of potential, but maybe not quite so much the means to be able to, do college without taking on a lot of debt and so forth.
Yep.
So just really, it was a great project. I mean, they interviewed, I think, 4 of my seniors. They interviewed a couple, Reggie and Ed Ekmalian.
I know they got Bob Plass
interviewed-
and James.
Yes, they got Bob and James. They interviewed Rita Curdy.
Okay.
And Wayne, whose last name I don't remember, he's one of our pool players. And it was just really interesting for me because when I read the booklet, I was reading the interviews that they did, and I was learning things about my own seniors that I didn't know. And I've known some of these people for years. So
Very
it was
cool.
a lot of fun. Yeah. So try to catch it. Again, it'll be at the high school the next couple of days. So, all right, I have Gary wandering.
Gary's
right
having
here
issues.
trying
I think
to-
we'll
trying
take
to
care
get-
of him
Okay,
in
well,
the
we'll
break.
take care of that. We're going to do a break. This is Gary's affirmation song by Savage Garden. We'll be back in just a minute.
set upon an argument. I believe we place our happiness in other people's hands. I believe the junk food tastes so good because it's bad for you. I believe your parents did the best job they knew how to do. I believe that beauty magazines promote low self-esteem. I believe I'm loved when I'm completely by myself alone. I believe in karma, what you give is what you get returned. I believe you can't appreciate real love till you've been burned. I believe the grass is no more greener on the other side. I believe you don't know what you've got until you say goodbye. I believe you can't control or choose your sexuality. I believe that trust is more important than monogamy. I believe your most attractive features are your heart and soul. I believe that family is worth more than money or gold. I believe the struggle for financial freedom is unfair. I believe the only ones who disagree are millionaires. I believe in karma, what you give is what you get returned. I believe you can't appreciate real life till you've been burned. I believe the grass is no more greener on the other side. I believe you don't know what you've got until you say goodbye. I believe forgiveness is the key to your unhappiness. I believe that wedded bliss negates the need to be undressed. I believe that God does not endorse TV evangelists. I believe in love surviving death into eternity. I believe in karma, what you give is what you get returned. I believe you can't appreciate real love till you've been burned. I believe the grass is no more greener on the other side. I believe you don't know what you've got until you say goodbye. I believe in karma, what you give is what you get returned. I believe you can't appreciate real love till you've been burned. I believe the grass is no more greener on the other side. I believe you don't know what you've got until you say goodbye. Until you say goodbye. Oh no, 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 no. No, 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 no.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:21. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. It is Wednesday, June 5th. My guest this second hour, or this first hour, is Dr. Gary Gorman. I'm all discombobulated because we're not where we usually are. So we're in Studio 120.
At least you didn't say your second husband or something.
Yeah, there you go. You're right, Gare. We're in Studio 120, which is on the campus of Westfield Technical Academy. We are in Pete's new studio, sort of new-ish
Channel
studio.
15 studio.
Channel 15 studio. So we're getting used to everything because when we're up at the university, Pete is right across from me, and now he's behind a window that I can't really see him.
I'd love to get it where I have students working in the back here, so I can just sit out there with you guys and just play the music and stuff like that. But we haven't gotten to that point. Plus, there's a 2-hour delay for tech students today because of MCAS.
Oh, I did not realize that.
So they kind of keep the building quiet while I think it's juniors taking MCAS today.
Yes.
So the vocational students don't really crank up till about 10 o'clock. So
okay, all right. Well, anyway, so it's a little bit of a different setup for us, but we're excited to be here, and I have to say, it's taking shape, Pete. The studio is really it's starting to take shape with some of the technical things that we appreciate as radio hosts, and certainly our guests with with the microphone setup and the chairs on wheels and all of those other good things. So thank you for that. My guest is Gary Gorman, our resident. We like to call him our resident chiropractor. He's with Trinity Health of New England Medical Group. Welcome, Gary.
Well, good morning.
How are you there? I know
it seems like a month goes by in a week, or a week goes by in a month.
Gary said, "Is it my turn already?" Gary joins us on the first Wednesday of every month, and
I feel that every Wednesday is the first Wednesday of the month because where does the time go?
Like you were just here 3 days ago or last week. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah. So Gary's a little discombobulated too because he wasn't sure where we were. I could see your car coming in. That is the one thing that I do like about this studio. I have lots of windows, and I can really see what's going on outside. On the college campus, we're really secluded. I can't see anything.
You just saw the chefs come in for the morning to start prepping the kitchen.
I did see the chefs come in.
And I didn't know who they were, but I'm following them down to the kitchen.
Gary's like, "Where's the kitchen from here?"
It's right on the other side of the wall.
There you go. There you go.
Good.
All right. So, Gary, how are you doing? What's new in your life, my friend?
Gosh.
I never get to see you, so
you know what?
Let's catch up,
we were
honey.
talking about it last night. Things are just crazy. We're just finishing up track season. We had our state meet on Saturday, and 3 of our young ladies competed. One took 6th in the shot put, which was just great. And we have our banquet tonight, so I'll
That's
leave
with
here.
the East Longmeadow High
East
School
Longmeadow
girls
High
track
School.
team.
I have many patients to see when I leave here. Then I race over to
schedule.
It's crazy.
And then you've got the track banquet tonight.
Yeah. Tomorrow I have an in-service in the morning, and then I have an adult medicine meeting, and it goes on and on and on.
It goes on and on, Gare.
It just never stops.
It doesn't.
I take something off my plate, and 3 things are put back on. So
I know.
By my own doings, of course. So.
Well, it is what it. We are who we are, Gare.
Yep.
That's the way it goes. But but there are some fun things going on this summer.
There is.
So we are trying to plan some fun activities and take advantage of especially some of the outdoor, events and activities that are coming up in both Westfield and West Springfield, where we live, and just all kinds of other stuff going on.
I got to get over to see Jesse's fight on Saturday. That's the 5K road race over in Springfield.
Yeah.
Jesse's one of the owners of Nathan Bill's is where Griffin's Friends starts their morning runs. Has a very aggressive cancer, and this was the second fundraiser for her. I ran in last year's fundraiser, and I just this year I'm electing to really be more selective in my numbers of road races. I'm really transitioning out of racing and starting into biking. So, but I went over there, made a donation. I got to see some of my running friends who were all there, and you were talking about today's running.
Yeah, National Running Day.
National Running Day. So in our world, we have drinkers that run and runners that drink.
Oh, there you go. So it just goes in beautifully with National Moonshine Day.
Well, exactly. So, I am a runner that will drink afterward, just occasionally.
Yeah.
But there are drinkers that want to justify their drinking, so they'll go out and run so they could get back and drink. So
there you go.
It's really kind of cute. But it was a great affair, great function, and to raise money for just an awful disease process.
For sure.
Yeah, so it's good.
And
Lots going on.
speaking of running and National Running Day, we have the Boys and Girls Club half marathon 10K
Yes,
5K
yes,
coming up
yeah.
on June 22nd.
Yeah.
That's on a Saturday. The race starts at 9 a.m. Gary and I are both running the 5K on that one. And I
I
would.
think you'll hear me there too.
Oh, will you be there, Pete?
Yeah, they hired me to be the DJ again this year.
Oh, fun! That I had the last year. That was the first race that I ran in last year that I took first in my age division. I was really cranking it. There was somebody behind me that I don't know whether he used to be a police officer or had something. He seemed to know all the police officers on the route, and he was really. He passed me, I would pass him. We were really pushing each other, and I didn't know him. But after the race, we started talking, and I said to him, thank you. You really pushed me. That was a good race for me. I did a good time. And he said, right back at you because you were forcing me to. I was like, I'm not going to get beaten by a woman.
Yeah,
Although, and honestly, can't remember. I think he did beat me by just a few seconds. I think in the end we were almost together, but it was kind of fun.
You always try to
Appreciated
find
that.
somebody that's running at a pace that's going to push you along a little bit.
Yep, but that's not so far out of reach.
I'm back with the walkers and the dog
Well,
people.
the difference is I didn't have open heart surgery. And
Well,
you
but
did,
you know
so
what? I'm
that's,
not really
that's-
convinced that it's open heart surgery, but I was doing the calculations, and as it turns out, my first race was in 1971. I ran a 220-yard race at a local high school, and
In what year?
1971.
Wow.
So consequently, in 2021 will be 50 years
50
of me
years of running. Yeah, that's a lot
and
of running.
I feel that that's probably my body's telling me that enough's enough. I think a couple things happen with runners or with any athletes. Part of it is that you just have to listen to your body and realize that it's giving you warning signals that you either want to do something else or transition or limit the number of miles that you're running, et cetera. Or I think mentally for me, I've crossed the line of I'm not willing to put that effort into just dying on the course by running that extra sprint at the end and just I did that for so many years in high school and in college competing.
It's not competitive.
Now for me
you.
it's just going out as a run. As a friend of mine and former co-coach, a jolly jogger.
A jolly jogger.
But it's all good.
It
We're
is
out
all
there
good.
doing
It's-
it, and I was
yeah.
talking to a colleague, a running friend of mine at this function on Sunday, and he's like 67 or 68. He started later on in running, and he says, three of us were over 60 where we were running, and he goes, how many of us are over 60 that are out running right now anyway?
I
So,
agree.
the point is that
agree.
just get out and do it. It doesn't really matter your time. It doesn't matter. Just go out and do it.
Well, and I think, for me, my thing is I'm always, and I was talking to Mike McCabe, Captain McCabe, who's also a runner.
Right.
And, for me, I'm always just trying to do my own personal
Right.
best. I'm not really, I'm not out to take first in my division or whatever. That's great. I mean, if that happens and there aren't a lot of women over
Right.
60, that's kind of how I would do it. But my thing is, can I do it better? Or also, how do I feel at the end?
Right.
So even if my time maybe isn't the same or better than the time that I had for this race last year, but if I feel good at the end of the race and I feel like I ran a good race and I did the best I could, hey, that's great. That's what I'm doing. So for me, it's all about just a personal, just
Right,
sort of
and
a
that's
personal
really
thing.
what
I
it's-
think that's what running is
Right.
kind of about. And I mean, unless you're,
As
on
it
a high
should be.
school
Right.
competitive team
Right.
or college or something like that.
Yeah, as
But-
it should be. And what we
Yeah.
need to factor into consideration is that we age each year. So consequently,
Right.
if you run the same age, if you're putting the same amount of effort forth in your training and you run the same time as you did last year, well, you're a year older than you were last year. So consequently, that actually you're
Yeah.
actually doing better.
Yeah, you pointed that out to me when I ran the flat fast for
Right.
Run Westfield this year, and I was 4 seconds off my personal best, and I was happy with that time because I felt like I ran a good race, and I also felt like I couldn't
Right.
on that day could not have run any faster. And as you pointed out to me, my personal best for that race was 2 years ago.
Right.
So I was a kid back then. I was still in my late 50s 2 years ago. So now, I crossed that
Right.
60 line.
Right.
So anyway, it does make a difference.
It
but-
sure does. Yeah, it sure does.
Okay, so that's National Running Day. So we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about we started last month talking about sort of the basics of chiropractic,
Right,
and we talked
right.
a little bit about the physiology. I want to start with how you got involved with
Okay.
chiropractic and
That'd be
where, how did that all happen?
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that when we come back. This is my moonshine song. I love this song. It's called White Lightning by George Jones, who I love. I think George Jones is hysterical anyway, but this is in honor of National Moonshine Day. So we will be back.
Well, in North Carolina, way back in the hill, lived my old pappy, and he had him a still. He brewed white lightning till the sun went down, and then you'd fill him a jug and he'd pass it around. Mighty, mighty pleasing, pappy's corn squeezing. White lightning. Well, the G-men, T-men, revenuers too, searching for a place where he made his brew. They were looking, trying to book him, but my pappy kept on cooking. White lightning. Well, I asked my old pappy why he called his brew White Lightning instead of Mountain Dew. I took a little sip and right away I knew as my eyes bugged out and my face turned blue. Lightning started flashing, thunder started clashing. White lightning. Well, the G-men, T-men, revenuers too, searching for a place where it made his brew. They were looking, trying to book him, but my pappy kept on cooking. White lightning. Well, a CD slicker came and he said, I'm tough. I think I want to taste that powerful stuff. He took one slug and he drank it right down, and I heard him a moaning as he hit the ground. Mighty, mighty pleasing, your pappy's corn squeezing. White lightning. The G-men, T-men, revenuers too, searching for a place where he made his brew. They were looking, trying to book him, but my pappy kept on cooking. White lightning.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
Underwriting for WSKB's community radio programming is brought to you in part by R. Levesque Associates. They are offering landscape architecture, civil engineering, environmental permitting, and land surveying. RLA is a second-generation company devoted to excellence in the planning and design of outdoor spaces. On the web at rlaland.com or at 40 School Street in Westfield.
Friday mornings is something different on 89.5 FM. It's JP's Talk About Town.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:36. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, June 5th. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and we are broadcasting live from Westfield Technical Academy, Studio 120. So this is Pete's place. Pete Coles is behind the board, but I can't really see him.
Behind a lot of boards.
He's behind a lot of boards and down and away and sort of in another room from me. So that's taking a little bit of getting used to. My guest this morning is Dr. Gary Gorman. We like to refer to Gary as our resident chiropractor here at WSKB. He's with Trinity Health of New England Medical Group. So welcome back, Gary.
Thank you very much, Teen.
So we talked a little bit about our running passions
Right.
and so forth on this
Right.
National Running Day, but I want to talk about the whole sort of field of chiropractic. And I've asked this question. It's been so long since you and I started on the show together. 5 years, Gary. This
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
Next week is
Yeah.
my 5th year anniversary.
Yeah.
And your first time on the show was July 4th of 5 years ago. You were our first guest. That's when Dan Knappich and I did the show together.
That is true love. Coming
It is true
in on
love.
the 4th of July.
No, you wanted to. You asked me if you could. I didn't ask you. You asked me. You said I could be a guest and I can talk about, health, summer health, and dehydration, and being careful, and all that kind of
stand
stuff.
corrected then.
Well, you asked me. But that was your mistake, because you asked me if you could come on the show, and then when I got my own show, I asked you if you could be
And
a permanent
5
guest.
years later.
Yes, every month. But one of the things that I always ask my guests, especially when they're new, and I never asked you this, is I'll always say to them, whatever their profession is, I'll say, well, how did you get into that? Because I'm sure
Right.
when you were in 3rd grade and your teacher
Right.
said to you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm sure that who was your 3rd grade teacher? Mrs. Who?
Mrs. Griffin was. I had 3 third grade
Okay,
teachers.
who's
I
your
was
first
in the
one, Mrs.
transition.
Griffin?
She
So
was my
I'm
last one, my favorite. I
I'm
remember
sure
the
that
other two.
Mrs. Griffin didn't say I'm sure you didn't say to Mrs. Griffin, "I want to grow up and be a chiropractor," because you
Although
probably
my
didn't even know. Did you know what a chiropractor
I
was
did
back
not.
then?
Although my 4th grade teacher, who I still keep in
Yes.
touch with, Miss Flanagan.
Yes, Miss Flanagan.
She refreshed my memory. I went to visit her a couple years ago, and she said at one point in time, I thought I wanted to be a priest.
Oh, there you go.
Interesting enough.
Oh, I had that problem too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ran in the family.
Well, so my
Yeah.
brother Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that
Interesting.
that pathway changed.
That did change.
But
But let's talk. So let's talk about, in all seriousness,
So
Gary. So
ironic-
how did you get into the field of chiropractic?
I didn't know.
Because I have to be honest with you. Before I started dating you, I didn't even know what a chiropractor was.
Right. As I didn't. And you know what? I was exposed to chiropractic when as a result of my dad. My dad was an electrical contractor. He worked with the tools for many years, and then he became a road supervisor. But he injured his back. And my father I'm like my dad, where he never missed a day of work in his life. And so he would drag himself out of the car, and one of his coworkers, one of the electricians, says, "Why don't you go see this guy here?" And his name is Dr. Robert Satilli. He's down in Parsippany in New Jersey.
Okay.
And so my father went down to him and started getting adjusted and manipulated.
And Dr. Satilli was a chiropractor.
He was a chiropractor.
Yes. Okay.
And at that time, chiropractic was new, and they were just doing anything they could to get patients into their office. So they would have these family plans where we would all go down there and get adjusted for like $10 or $15 or whatever it was.
Of course, it was also back in.
It was
you
back
know,
in the
back
70s.
In the 70s, yeah.
It was back in the 70s. But I had injured myself playing football. I had a whiplash injury hitting, and it was 9th grade, and I was hitting the 2-man sled, and I must have tractioned my neck where I had these severe headaches.
What is a 2-man sled?
Oh, it's
a piece of equipment,
It's a
right?
piece of equipment where you're blocking, and the coach stands on it, puts weight on it, and you and another teammate push this sled. It's teaching you blocking skills.
Okay.
And so I must have hit it incorrectly, and I got to the point where I had some neck issues, but I was having these blinding headaches where in gym class when I'd be yelling or for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I'd actually have to stop because the room would kind of go black, and it was really
wow.
weird. So I was telling my dad about this, and he took me to the chiropractor.
Okay.
And he helped me, helped me with other aches and pains that I had as being an athlete, and that was the beginning of it. And ironically, I never really thought of chiropractic as a career path from that point on. I went on to continue to play all my sports and knew that I wanted to go to college, didn't know really what I wanted to do. Went to college at East Stroudsburg State College at the time. Now it's university. I chose that because I had run up there a couple times, and they had a good running program. The coach was interested in me. A lot of local good talent from our county went to school there, and I knew some people, personal friends, a couple were in school there. So it was a natural for me to just go there. And I didn't
And you thought you were going to major in
track
running.
and running,
I'm going to major
right.
in track and field.
Although early on, I thought I feel that thinking back upon it, I felt I was interested in dentistry.
Yeah, you were. I remember that.
And so when I got into the course load, I knew things were changing. I wasn't a really super strong student in high school. I was an average student in high school. I focused more on socialization and athletics.
Yes, you were very good at socialization.
Yes,
Voted
yes.
most popular in our high school class.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
there you go.
Yes, and you
So
were...
we knew that you did that well.
Yes, and you were the all-American ideal, I believe, and
Yes, that's true.
valedictorian, and many other. I married up academically. At least it took me a while to catch up. So you know what? It was interesting in that I changed majors a couple times, and my best friend and I transferred to Madison College, now James Madison University, and I went down there and became a business major for a short period of time.
Okay.
And then that didn't seem to strike my fancy the way it was. And I ultimately decided on health science.
Mm-hmm.
And I was absolutely fascinated on my first anatomy course. And I remember coming back to you and said, Tina, we have 12 pairs of ribs and 2 floating ribs. And man, wait until I get into the nervous system if I thought the ribs were exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
And so as fate would have it, on spring break in our junior year, my buddy friend and I went down to Florida, and we stayed with his brother in Marathon, Florida, which is 53 miles north of Key West. It's in the Keys. His brother is a chiropractor.
Okay.
And we spent a week with him. I went over to his office. I thought it was the coolest thing. I got adjusted for free because, of course, I was a guest in his house.
Yes.
And I saw his office, and I saw him dressed up with a shirt and tie on and how he was helping people. And in the course of that week, he instilled a confidence in me that I could handle the course load to go to graduate school for my doctorate. Mm-hmm. And so the rest was history. I came back from spring break junior year and said, I know what I want to do the rest of my life. And that is what that's where it began.
Yeah.
So I finished up with my health science degree at JMU, and I went back for an extra semester. I picked up some of the other hard sciences that I needed to get into college. I had gone to a different chiropractor in New Jersey, and he was an alumni of Palmer College of Chiropractic. Mm-hmm. And that was the only school I applied to. I had never seen the school. I got accepted to the school, and I went there sight unseen.
And now you need to explain to our listeners where Palmer College of Chiropractic is located. It's not like next door.
No, Palmer College of Chiropractic is in Davenport, Iowa. It is 900 miles away from home. I had connected with my best friend who I went to school with. His father owned a Dairy Maid, and one of the boys in his community worked there for the summers. He was a little younger than we were, but he had gone to a chiropractic college in Texas and was transferring to Palmer.
Yep.
So Buddy made the connection, and I met Chris Good, and I ended up being roommates together. But we caravanned out. I was in my Maverick, and he was in his truck, and we followed each other out on Route 80. I had never been past Pennsylvania. I get into Indiana and see cornfields. We pull over. We stop at this hotel, walk over to a little diner. I'm thinking, what am I getting myself into?
Yeah.
Kept driving, went through Pennsylvania, Indiana, Illinois, crossed the Mississippi River.
Yep.
And the Quad Cities is made up of 4 cities, 2 on the Illinois side, 2 on the Iowa side. And as it turns out, your dad used to do a lot of business in Rock Island, Illinois, as part of the government work that he did.
Yeah.
And so we actually stayed on the couch of a classmate of Chris's and looked for an apartment. Mm-hmm. And the rest was really kind of history. Started
how
there.
much? I don't remember, Gare, but how much time did you have between the time you actually landed in Davenport
Probably
before
about a
classes
week
started?
Or so.
About a week. You gave yourself to
classes
find a
started
place
the
to
end
live
of
and
September,
figure it all
beginning
out.
October. So we left late September, and I started, and I met a student from the Springfield area here. His name is Joe Boyle. He started his brother is a judge. His other brother's a priest. He is a very infiltrated Springfield College grad.
Yes.
We met and we were classmates, started off together, went through school together, studied together, graduated together. And fast forwarding, he was the one that came to me and said, I think you need to listen to think about going to to go to Riverbend Medical Group from your practice, your private practice in West Springfield, which I did in 2004, and the rest was history. So,
okay, well, I'm going to stop you there because I want to come back to we need to take a break. It is 6:46. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses. And I know this is not exactly what was on your agenda to talk about, but I think it's important for people to understand a little bit about what the educational process was once you got out to Palmer. So you've gotten us out there, but I'd like to talk when we come back, Gary, about some of what your courses were. How long did you? Because a lot of people have questions about that. Well, as a chiropractor, a real doctor, what exactly is it like? An online certificate program? Yeah. So I really want to get into that, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
All right, it is 6:47. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield Masses. So in honor of today is National Running Day, I chose this one just for you, Gary. This is Chariots of Fire by Vangelis.
One of my favorites.
Yes.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com. Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com.
Friday mornings is something different on 89.5 FM. It's JP's Talk About Town.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 6:52. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, June 5th. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and we are broadcasting live from Westfield Technical Academy, Studio 120. Pete Cole's behind the board. I can't really see him, but hi, Pete.
Good morning.
Back there. Good morning. And my guest this morning is our resident chiropractic physician, Dr. Gary Gorman with Trinity Health of New England Medical Group. So welcome again, Gare.
Thank you. Thanks,
so
Tina.
we're kind of talking about how you got involved in chiropractic.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really interesting. You were talking about your dad needing a chiropractor.
Yeah.
My dad also had injured his back. He was a volunteer firefighter and had injured his back. And at the time, that was also back, actually, I think this for him was in the 60s. He went to an osteopath and was adjusted and manipulated because in those days, osteopathy was more on the chiropractic spectrum as opposed to now more on the MD spectrum, which is kind of, that was an interesting transition. So it was really interesting because I had never heard of a chiropractor or the chiropractic physician, but was more familiar with osteopathy as sort of the, it kind of dovetailed.
Yep.
So interesting how both of our dads, dealing with those injuries and going about the treatment in the same way, just two different professions at that time. So Gary, I wanted you talked about, the transition out to chiropractic college and sort of arriving to Palmer.
Culturally arriving.
In your Maverick with not much. Yep. So talk to us a little bit about, because I know a lot of people have misconceptions about the educational process and the schooling. What was that like for you? How many years were you at chiropractic college, and what did all that entail?
Yeah. So let me just preface that by saying, in undergraduate school, when you have a course, you'll have a course called Anatomy and Physiology, A&P.
Right.
So you may have a semester or a year, A&P 1 and A&P 2. But you may have a chapter on neurology, a chapter on gastroenterology, a chapter on respiratory system, a chapter or two on the nervous system. So you have it's really a abbreviated version of what we studied. So when I got into grad school, at that time was a 12-quarter program. It was a 4-year curriculum. We did it in 3 years because a lot of us were married. We took full summer loads. So we didn't take the summers off. We went year round.
Instead of 4 years with summers off, you did 3 years and straight through.
They had since transitioned. They were starting to transition that process into trimesters. And so I think now it's a 10-trimester program. Again, having your winter, your spring, and your summer trimesters. It was just a matter of the calendar years that they were switching up. So in our academic curriculum, I remember my first quarter, I think we had 18 credits, and I'll never forget it. I ended up with like a 3.8 GPA. I had 1 B. But we started off, it was like we had a study, it was called osteology, myology. Osteology is a study of bones. So it wasn't like you just remembered the bones of the skeleton, but you had to know every bump and every groove and what that entailed and what nerves went through this particular area. So it was an entire course on just studying the bones.
Okay.
Another course called myology of just studying the muscles, origins, where they started, where they finished, what the nerve that controlled them, what movements they did. We had histology, the study of tissues. We had cell physiology. I maybe had biochem 1 or whatever it was. So we ended up having 18 credit hours, and that's the
sort of the
intensity of it. We used to use this expression. It's like taking a drink out of a fire hydrant, and
Yeah.
how fast and furious our academic and how rigorous it was. And I had Mike Crow actually had some medical school exposure, and he basically told us that the basic anatomy and physiology, the basic core curriculum of what we're learning at Palmer was exactly the same as it was in med school. There was no difference. Anatomy is anatomy, physiology is physiology, and that's the intensity that we learned it. Where we diverged off with medical school and chiropractic colleges, medical school has a much more rigorous residency program where they are submerged into a clinical environment that of hospitals and outpatient care, and there's a lot of options. We had a residency program where we had certain number of requirements that we had to meet for graduation. We had one of the largest outpatient clinics in the world, chiropractic clinics in the world, in Palmer.
Right at the college.
At the college.
So people would come. It was sort of like having your own
right.
clinic.
It was like a free clinic or a cheap clinic for the residents of the Quad Cities.
Right.
But we had to do X number of physical exams. We had to adjust X number of patients.
Right.
Outside of the students. We would work on each other, but then we would practice on each other. But we actually had to have a patient load, patient population outside that we'd have to go cultivate and garnish and try to talk them into coming into getting treatment from a student. And when you finished up all your curriculum, then you could actually sit an exam to become I don't even remember what it's called. It was like an externship. So you supervised your classmates in certain fields of X-ray or adjustments in the clinic or physical exam, whatever the case may be. So I was a gold coat, which was I got all my requirements done in advance, and I took an exam, and that also waived your tuition for that semester as well too.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, which was really kind of nice. So I did that for 1 or 2 quarters.
Yep.
And so that was really great. So I feel that our basic science program was on par with a lot of your medical school training.
Yep.
Their fellowships and their internships and their residency programs, which I still don't quite totally understand in medical school.
I know, it's confusing.
Or, you have a first-year resident, second-year resident, third-year resident. And so that's where medical school is longer and more intense when you get into the specifics of your clinicals.
Right.
And we did the best we can. So with that said, there were some residency programs that developed when we got out of chiropractic college, and they were sponsored by chiropractic colleges, and they were held in different parts of the country. So, for example, I went on to get a diplomate, which is a postdoctoral program in clinical neurology. And what it was 300 hours where I would go 1 weekend a month, which was like 10 or 12 hours on the weekend. Yep. I went to Bentley, actually, for 2 years. And then I flew down to Philadelphia and took a board examination, and so I have a diplomate program. Basically, that means is that I went on to go for a little bit more education in a specialized field, which was neurology in my case. But, in the curriculum, as I'll tell my students, when I teach at Springfield College human disease, I'll say, look, I'm teaching you one chapter on this. Here's what I had. I had a whole course on renal physiology. One of my favorite professors was my renal phys professor, Dr. Reddy. And so I'm teaching you one chapter on the kidney. I had an entire course on it.
Yeah.
On nervous system, I had a whole course on just the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system. And I had a whole course on. So we are well trained in the basic anatomies and physiologies and pathologies. Where we get very little education is pharmacology, which is on the pharmaceuticals and drug interactions, because we don't prescribe medications.
You don't prescribe. Yep.
But by and large, other than that, we had a pretty grueling curriculum. So I got out of school. I sat the board exam, the diplomat program.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to ask. So now, when you, in order to be a chiropractor, do you have to go through like a licensure or certification?
Yes, at that time.
Or what happens?
Yes, that has changed as well too. When I was a student, we had to take 2 parts of it's called national board exams, and we had to take part 1 and part 2 of the national board exams, and so you had to pass both parts. I think even to graduate from
Was
school.
that a written part and
It was
then
a
the
written.
clinical part?
No, they
Or
were
no?
all written, but
all
they were
written,
pretty
okay.
intense, and they were in different parts of your education. So they didn't come back to back. They were maybe.
Okay.
I forget what part of our curriculum.
Yeah.
So we passed 2 parts of national boards, and then we had to sit a state board exam in whatever state that you wanted to
Yeah, so you have
practice
to be
in.
licensed in
whatever
state.
state. And I found that was kind of absurd. I felt that they could have broken it up. So, for example, my first board I sat was, I think, the Pennsylvania board.
You did.
And then I flew down and I sat the Virginia board, or I took that after my Mass board, and then I took the New Jersey board much later. So I did pass 4 board exams.
Well, you were trying to figure out, where might I want to practice?
Right.
We were originally from New Jersey,
Right.
so we did that. We had really talked a lot about, both went to undergraduate school in Virginia. We talked
Right.
about going back to Virginia, so
Right.
you wanted to get that license, and then
Pennsylvania was actually an early license. I wanted to practice. I wanted to figure out how to take the board
It wasn't too
exams.
expensive. I remember at the time it wasn't too expensive because it costs money every time you
Right,
take
and
these exams.
I had to drive down to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to do it.
But you were
so.
like, well, that one isn't too expensive. It's close by. Let me take that, and that's my practice to see what this is all about.
Right.
So.
And you know what? I always felt, even back then, and that has changed. Now there's more of the national board exams, which is taking the weight over the state board exams. So, but your state board exams are not as aggressive.
Yeah.
We had to do a physical exam component of it, a radiology component of it, a written component of it. And so now I think you have to learn the laws of the state and maybe a couple other little things state by state. But I always felt that they should have broken it up into a region. So, for example, New England.
Yes. Yeah.
What's the difference of Connecticut and Massachusetts?
Sure.
Why couldn't they get together and come up with one regional board, mid-Atlantic states? You know, you had your Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Delaware. And then you had your southern states or your Midwest. So why couldn't they come up with a regional board? Well, it was a money thing for one and two. But I think each state was unique in what they required of their doctors as well too.
Yeah.
So in
and if it's any
them.
consolation to you, I took I had to I sat for all of these different
Right.
boards and tests myself, and like my social work license.
Right.
I had to sit for that in Massachusetts. That's a different test. If I wanted to go and practice in New Jersey, I would have had to sit for the New
Right.
Jersey one. So yeah, it is the same thing. And of course, Gary, you're right. A lot of it has to do with the dollars and cents.
Right.
But also understanding the state laws, because they do vary from state to state within a practice.
So I'll finish up on this note talking
Go
about
ahead.
finances. It's interesting. I remember when we were thinking about going back to New Jersey, I sat the New Jersey board, but I didn't keep my license current every year.
Right.
And I called New Jersey and said, I'm thinking of coming back to New Jersey. How do I reactivate my license? Do you need all my continuing ed? They go, oh, no. All you need to do is pay whatever you owed from the time you took your license to now. So every year I would have had a.
Yeah.
So here, $1,500 or whatever it was.
Yeah, right.
They didn't care if I went to school for my education. They just wanted my $1,500.
Well-
I go, really?
Well,
Oh.
what their basic thing was, listen, you already took our state exam. You passed it once.
And you've been practicing in
You
another.
don't have to take that again. Just pay us all the money you owe us if
Exactly.
you want to come back.
So
That is funny.
that was my education, and it was just phenomenal.
Well, Gary, I know we're out of time for your slot, but I know we went off script a little
That's
bit,
okay.
but I thought that was really important as we started talking, and I realized, because of course we were married for
Yes.
most of the time that you were in
Yes.
chiropractic school, so I am familiar with all these courses and sort of watched you study and so forth.
Yes.
But it did occur to me that the general public probably doesn't know what what the educational process is. So thank you for going over that, and I know
You're welcome.
you had some other things that you wanted to talk
we'll
about
do that next month.
that we can do next month.
Alrighty.
It is 7:05. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we've got lots of announcements to do before Anna Marie Golden from Bay State Health comes.
Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
Friday mornings is something different on 89.5 FM. It's JP's Talk About Town.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:08. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. It is Wednesday, June 5th. It is the first Wednesday of June, so we're excited. The students are excited because they're looking forward to the end of the school year. We're broadcasting
The
live.
countdown is on.
The countdown is on,
And I
Pete.
think there's something going. There's some kind of private event going on next door because it smells really good. It smells like breakfast coming from Tiger's Pride.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I saw all the culinary arts folks coming in here.
Yeah,
so
it smells like
that
breakfast.
voice that you hear is the chairman of the board, producer Pete Coles, who we are in his studio. We're at Studio 120 here at Westfield Technical Academy. So I can't really see Pete. I can just hear him. So this
The
is
voice in your ear.
I know, the voice in my ear. It's new and different, but you know what? We'll get used to it, Pete. So June 5th, we have some famous birthdays. It's the birthday of actor Mark Wahlberg. He was born June 5th, 1971 in our own Dorchester, Massachusetts. He's 48 years old today, and he embarked on an early life of crime. You know, he wasn't always an actor. He got in trouble before he turned to acting.
A lot.
Yes, by the time he emerged from prison, his older brother Donnie had rocketed to stardom as one of 5 fresh-faced members of the pop band New Kids on the Block. Donnie decided to help his younger brother find his own niche in the music business, and Mark Wahlberg rose to fame as rapper Marky Mark. He turned to film in the 1990s, earning acclaim for his work in The Basketball Diaries, Boogie Nights, and Three Kings. Other films included The Perfect Storm, The Departed, and The Fighter. In 2016, Mark Wahlberg starred in Patriots Day, a film about the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. So happy 48th birthday to the turned around Mark Wahlberg.
Now restaurant mogul.
There you go. From a life of crime to acting to restaurant.
Have you ever been to Wahlburgers?
I have not.
Oh, you'll have to go when they come here to Springfield.
Okay. Is there a plan for them to come to Springfield?
Oh, yeah. They announced that they're going to be opening, I think, later on this year or next year.
No kidding.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll keep tabs on that. It is also the birthday of, I'm just such a fan of saxophonist Kenny G. Kenny G was born June 5th, 1956 in Seattle, Washington. He's 63 years old. If you're wondering what the G stands for, Kenny G was actually born Kenneth Bruce Gorlick. So that's his last name, Gorlick. He began playing professionally at age 17 when he performed with Barry White and his Love Unlimited Orchestra. Kenny G released his debut album in 1982 and rose to international fame following the 1986 release of Duotones. Later albums, including Breathless and Miracles, helped make him one of the top-selling artists of all time. Kenny G won a Grammy Award in 1994 and at one point held the world record for the longest sustained note on a saxophone. And by the way, if you don't have his Christmas albums, his holiday albums, one is called Faith and the other one is maybe Hope. Anyway, they're excellent. So, it is also the birthday of Brian McKnight, rhythm and blues singer, songwriter, producer. He was born June 5th, 1969 in Buffalo, New York. He's 50 years old today and now is eligible for AARP. So good news for you, Brian McKnight.
Oh, boy.
There you go. He's a multi-instrumentalist who plays piano, guitar, bass guitar, percussion, trombone, tuba, flugelhorn, and trumpet. So kind of talented. He's most recognized for his strong falsetto and belting range. McKnight's work has earned him 16 Grammy Award nominations, though he has never won. So lots of nominations, but no wins yet. At the age of 19, Brian McKnight signed his first recording deal with Mercury Records. In 1992, Brian McKnight was released, and his self-titled debut album peaked at 58 in the Billboard 200 chart. It was followed by 2 more albums for Mercury, 1995's I Remember You and 1997's Anytime. Anytime sold over 2 million copies and was nominated for a Grammy. In 1997, McKnight recorded Remember the Magic for Disney World's 25th anniversary. So happy birthday to Brian McKnight. And finally, it is the birthday of Dawn Reed, singer born June 5th, 1945 in Stanton, Virginia. And Gary, if he was still there, he would know exactly where Stanton, Virginia is because it's right down the street from James Madison University, where we did our undergraduate work. Don Reed is 74 years old today. He is one of the original members of the Statler Brothers, the most award-winning act in the history of country music. He and his brother Harold and 2 friends began singing in their hometown of Stanton, Virginia, when Don was only 14 years old. Working all over their home and neighboring states as a part-time group, they were discovered in 1964 by Johnny Cash and given their first record contract. By the time Don Reed was 20 years old, the Statler Brothers had their first major worldwide hit record with Flowers on the Wall, which we're going to listen to later on, which started a string of hits that generated a career in the music industry that lasted for 4 decades. Don was the principal writer for the group. He's had over 250 of his songs recorded by not only the Statlers, but also by Johnny Cash, George Burns, Tammy Wynette, the Cathedrals, and Elvis Presley, to name a few. So happy 74th birthday to singer Don Reed. So those are our famous birthdays for today.
Cool.
Yeah. So a few announcements. We'll stick with just the basics here. We have a presentation this afternoon at the Westfield Senior Center. It is open to the public. Anyone can come. You do not have to pre-register. It's called Challenge Diabetes. It will be taking place at 1 o'clock this afternoon. The presenter is Chet Galaska, and this is done through funding through the Westfield Lions Club. So we thank the Lions Club. Roxanne Bradley and Mike McCabe are members of that club and kind of help to organize all of this. So Chet is going to talk about what exactly is diabetes, why do people become diabetic, and how can people manage the disease. So this is actually, he's doing the general session and opening it up to everyone. And then he's doing 2 more sessions for those who are interested in a more individualized approach to diabetes. And he'll be focusing on primarily diet and exercise over the next couple of weeks. Those second 2 parts of this series are, you do have to register for that because we do have limited space for that. But the introductory talk this afternoon is open to anyone. We're going to do it in the great room, so we'll have plenty of room, plenty of seating. So that's at 1 o'clock today. Challenge Diabetes. If you're at all interested, you don't have to sign up. Just come on over to the Westfield Senior Center at 45 Noble Street. And tomorrow, we have a program tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. It's called Home Sweet Home, But Where? And I have Eric Asheim from Oasis Senior Advisors of Western Massachusetts will be at the Senior Center tomorrow night at 6 o'clock for an informative discussion about evaluating senior living options in our area. So this will be very targeted to the greater Westfield area because making the decision to move from your home is a really big decision to make. And you really want to discover what's the perfect fit community if you're interested in a senior living community. So Eric will talk about the differences between traditional retirement communities and independent or assisted living, how you can set up tours and make comparisons, what's the affordability of those, the financial aspect of it. Can you do a trial period before you commit long term? So he'll discuss all of those things tomorrow night. We are asking that you sign up for that, again, just so that I know what room I'm putting people in. And so you can call us at the Senior Center at 562-6435 if you're interested in tomorrow night's presentation, Home Sweet Home, But Where? Again, that's at 6 o'clock. And my last Senior Center announcement, I just want to remind everyone that next Friday, June 14th at 6 o'clock, we'll have Sarah the Fiddler coming to do a concert for us. This is our Father's Day Fiddlin' Around concert, but you don't have to be a dad or a granddad or a father figure or a stepfather to attend the concert. It is open to anyone. including your grandchildren and your children. If you would like to bring family members, we would love to have them. You do have to get your tickets. They're $5, and they must be purchased in advance. You can get them anytime that the Senior Center is open from 8:30 to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. We'll have door prizes. We'll have a 50-50 drawing. We're going to have a lottery ticket basket. And you will take home a delicious ice cream sundae on your way out. So your ticket admission price is for the concert and a wonderful, delicious ice cream sundae. And it's a big sundae. It really rivals the friendly sundaes. So no more than 4 tickets per person, but certainly please come on down and get your tickets for the Sarah the Fiddler concert. So that's what's going on Senior Center-wise. There's lots more going on, but that's all I have time to announce right now. I just want to do a few other announcements on things going on around Westfield. Remember that Stanley Park has their guided walks every Thursday from 9:30 to 10:30 in the morning. And you meet at the Westfield Bank Children's Pavilion. So go past the tennis courts, and it's at sort of where the playground is over there. This Saturday, Stanley Park is having their wheel walk from 10 to noon. Registration, if you haven't pre-registered, you can register Saturday morning at 9 o'clock at the Beverage Pavilion. The wheel walk is the park's endeavor to bring awareness to accessibility for all. This is an ongoing initiative. The event is designed to accommodate everyone with or without wheels. This is a really popular event. We have a team from the Senior Center going over there. I know I talked to Terry Summers. The YMCA has a team going over there as well. So just, go and support Stanley Park and the accessibility. And speaking of Stanley Park, their Sunday night series kicked off last week. This week on June 9th, the concert is 91 South Band. It's a 5-piece band, and they will bring you back to the days of Elvis, the Beatles, Johnny Cash, the Rolling Stones, the Doors, the Kinks, and then take you on a journey into the 90s with the likes of Bon Jovi, AC/DC, and Van Halen.
They were in the parade. They were very good.
Were they really?
Yes.
I did not know that,
Yep.
Pete.
They were on a trailer.
So this is a free concert. It's the Sunday night concert series. The concerts begin at 9 o'clock in the Beverage Pavilion, weather permitting. They're free, sponsored by Westfield Bank. So thank you so much to Westfield Bank, who sponsors so much in Westfield. Food services provided by the Greater Westfield, Western Hampton County Medical Reserve Corps, and the Greater Westfield CERT. Pete, this is where you come in.
Community
CERT.
Emergency Response Team.
Okay. Chairs will be available. So you can visit the Stanley Park website if you want more information about that. And the other concert that will be taking place upcoming, I got to find this, is the Amelia Park, part of the Amelia Park concert series. And that one takes place on Tuesday evenings in the garden, the Amelia's Garden. The concerts are at 6:30, and this is going to be a good one, so I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget to announce this, Pete. June 11th, so that'll be next Tuesday, the Westfield High School Jazz Band will be playing, and they are outstanding.
They're great, yeah.
They are outstanding. And for them to do an outdoor concert, I think that's going to be so much fun. Again, it's a free concert. You do have to bring your own lawn chairs for that one. You can enjoy the beautiful flowers and sunset. They will have snacks available for purchase. And if the weather turns bad, if it's raining or whatever, they'll do the concert inside. So not to worry. So the jazz band will be playing rain or shine. But if they do it inside, you might want to bring a hoodie or a sweater or a fleece or just some kind of a lightweight jacket, because it might be a little cool in there. All right, so that's my abbreviated version. I have lots more announcements. We'll get through those as we proceed here. It is 7:21. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. My break song is a Kenny G number. It's called Stranger on the Shore. And when we come back, we have Anna Marie Golden with us from Bay State Health.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield. Underwriting for community radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com.
Friday mornings is something different on 89.5 FM. It's JP's Talk About Town.
Community radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:25. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM, radio for the Westfield masses. And Pete, I just realized, we lied. We are not live from Westfield State University. We are live from Westfield Technical Academy. We're at Studio 120.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, there you go. So that was Pete Coles. Pete is the chairman of the board. We like to refer to him as the chairman of the board. He's the producer of our show, and we are in his studio here, which is
the vicar of the video switcher today.
Exactly. He's like this is like a work in progress. So it's a great studio. And my guest, as promised, is Anna Marie Golden, director of community relations with Bay State Health. So welcome back, Anna Marie.
Good morning, Tina. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you for coming. So for those who listen to the show regularly, you might remember this name because Anna Marie was here, I think, back in February, and we were talking about a project that you were working on called the Community Health Needs Assessment. So that has been sort of an ongoing project here. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about, I want to go back to, for those listeners who missed that show and missed kind of what that was all about, I want to talk about what that is and then sort of get an update on where we are. So it's the acronym, they refer to it as the CHNA.
Correct.
It took me a long time from sitting at all these meetings, and Eliza Lake was always throwing around CHNA. And in my head, I'm going, oh, wait, Community Health Needs Assessment. That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
So let's talk to the public about what is the what is Bay State's goal here. What is the Community Health Needs Assessment, and why do we have it? Why do you have it?
So all hospitals around the country are actually required to do a Community Health Needs Assessment
so this is
3
not
years.
just a Bay State thing. This is any hospital.
Absolutely.
Every 3 years.
Every 3 years.
Okay.
So this is our third iteration. So we did our first assessment back in 2013. But we're unique here in Western Mass. We're very collaborative. So we actually partner with all 4 of our Bay State hospitals. Health New England, our insurer, as well as Cooley Dickinson, Shriners Hospital, and Mercy Medical Center as well. So we all come together, we pool our resources, so we're the key funders of this project, and then we engage lots of community folks throughout the process as well, to help design the process and to help give input into the process, as well as sharing with us what they're experiencing as far as health needs and social challenges in the community. So we launched this project back in September of last year.
Okay.
So we've been convening a regional advisory council that's been meeting monthly, and we have a consultant team, a local team that's been looking at data, numbers, right, from the hospital, from DPH, from census. But we're really limited, actually, in that data that we can have.
Okay.
Some of the most recent data we have access to is from 2014, which is kind of surprising, right? You think there would be more recent data we could access. So we've gone out and supplemented that with qualitative data. So going out and listening to the community. So we've done that in a few ways. We've done focus groups. We've done key informant interviews. We've also had community conversations, which is the one that I was promoting back in February here on your show. And then we've also had what we call chats, where we went and met with smaller groups of people to talk with them about the project, about the needs assessment, and to hear from them what they're experiencing, what they're seeing in terms of health needs and social challenges.
So talk to us a little bit, Anna Marie, about because you mentioned focus groups, you mentioned chats, you mentioned community things. So just for those listening, who were the people that you actually were trying to, because I think all of those different groups were targeting different people, in some cases professionals, in some cases like people using services. So can you kind of talk a little bit about that? Like, who were the people that you actually talked to get the information to say, what are the needs in the community? What are the health needs in the community?
So at Bay State Noble, we actually have a community benefit advisory council. And so we use that group to help us focus in on what topics we wanted to learn more about in this community. So the two areas that the Community Benefit Advisory Council and the hospital were interested in was around behavioral health, substance use, and food insecurity. So starting there, that is what really drove our focus groups. So we reached out with community partners that had relationships with people that are in recovery, or maybe grandparents taking care of children because their parents are,
abusing substances in one shape
and
or
then
form,
other partners around food insecurity. So that really is where we went deep around a particular area with people with lived experience for the focus groups. The key informant interviews were about 4 people. We did 2 around food insecurity, 2 for substance use, and those were folks that work in that space, that work with that really kind of have a bird's eye view of.
So they work in the
that
field,
topic.
maybe
Correct.
with agencies and organizations that are dealing with either food issues or substance abuse issues.
Correct.
In one
Correct.
some
so
way,
the
shape, or
focus,
form.
Correct. So the focus group and key informant interviews really went deep in those particular topics, and then the community conversation and the chats were much broader. So we asked, well, what are you experiencing, or what are you seeing as health challenges and concerns in your community? Who are those residents or those populations or groups of people that you're most concerned about? And then also, what are the community assets? We also wanted to hear all the wonderful resources.
What's working
Exactly in the community. And then we also asked the question of who else should we talk to? Who else should we listen to? So from that question, and all of these smaller conversations we had, they kept leading to other groups.
Well,
so
that's what happens. I mean, it's like this. It's like the the spinning wheel that all of a sudden it just it's just you're gathering people, or you throw the pebble in the brook, and it just it's the ripple effect.
And we tried to also balance community with also in the hospital. So we also had some of these same conversations within the hospital. So meeting with their engagement council, meeting with the patient family advisory council, meeting with the hospital leadership team. So we were trying to balance engaging the employees and the leadership of the hospital, because they see a lot as well, and then also with the community. So regionally, across all of Bay State Health's service area, we had over 30 focus groups. We had, over 10 focus groups, over 30 key informant interviews, 5 community conversations, and over 65 of those chats.
Yeah. You know what? I think that what I don't want the listeners to lose sight of, because as I'm listening to you talk about this, it's kind of mind-boggling to me. I think especially for a lot of the older listeners in the old days, the hospital was a place where, you got sick or you needed to have an operation, and you went to this building and nurses and doctors took care of you. And that's what a hospital did. They weren't as community minded, I don't think, in terms of looking at, well, why are people coming to the hospital? Why are people coming to the hospital a lot for the same thing? Is it a frequent flyer that keeps coming back? Because if that's the case, what's missing? What are we not doing right here? What's the missing link? And I really applaud all of the hospitals. And I know this is mandated, and I don't know who came up with this idea, but I think it's really important, because I think that it puts the hospital more in touch and in tune with the community and the needs of the community. And of course, I've always said even with the senior centers and the councils on aging, people have asked about just the generalization. You can't generalize. Each one is unique to its own community. My council on aging is different than Holyoke, which is different than Springfield, which is different than Boston. And it's the same thing with hospitals. Bay State Noble Hospital is different than Greenfield, which is different than Bay State, the mothership, as I call it, or Cooley Dickinson or whatever. So, and because every community is different, so your hospital needs are going to be different. So I think going through this process, which is as you said, started back in September. It's an exhausting process.
It is, but I would say that we do this every 3 years, but through this additional community engagement that we've had, we were very honored and privileged to be able to do that, and learned a lot. And,
I can imagine.
Personally, it was very, very rewarding, and I learned a lot. So what I'm trying to think about with Bay State is how can we continue this community engagement ongoing throughout the year. So moving forward, we are going to be hosting a community forum every year to talk about our community benefits, to talk about our community impact. So that is something we're going to do, but we don't want it to be just once a year. We want it to be ongoing, and so we're thinking about ways that we can continue this work. Not as intense.
Not as intense.
Yeah,
not as intense.
We're gonna pare it down a bit.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
make it something that's more doable.
Absolutely.
And
but that we can continue to listen and engage, and also be engaging the community into the hospital to interact. I just participated in a really interesting activity last week with our midwifery program. They had an interprofessional development session with the midwifery students as well as OBGYN residents, and they were doing a workshop on unconscious bias. So they asked if we could bring some community members in that had lived experience, being pregnant, having a hospital delivery, and we showed pictures, and then the community members talked about what did those pictures, what do they see, what do they feel? And it was really powerful to have the students and the residents listening to that and then sharing, it was so
it's always that practical
powerful
experience that
so we're looking for more
get a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, it is 7:36. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about, now that you've gathered all this information, sort of what's next in this process, because I know there's a special forum coming up at the Senior Center coming up in a few weeks to kind of get this information out to the public. So we'll talk more about that. This song, Anna Marie, this song is for you. So I chose, every once in a while, I'll have a guest with a name, and I choose a song that has to do with their name. And I thought, Golden, there's got to be something out there. I know there is. So this is Sister Golden here by America. This is just for you.
Oh, thank you.
I tried to make it Sunday, but I got so damn depressed that I set my sights on Monday and I got myself undressed. I ain't ready for the altar, but I do agree there's times when a woman sure can be a friend of mine. But I keep on thinking about you, Sister Golden Hair Surprise, and I just can't live without you. Can't you see it in my eyes? I've been one poor correspondent, and I've been too hard to trying to fake it. I don't mind saying I just can't make it.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
Underwriting for WSKB's community radio programming is brought to you in part by R. Levesque Associates. They are offering landscape architecture, civil engineering, environmental permitting, and land surveying. RLA is a second-generation company devoted to excellence in the planning and design of outdoor spaces. On the web at rlaland.com or at 40 School Street in Westfield.
Friday mornings is something different on 89.5 FM. It's JP's Talk About Town.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:41. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host, and my guest this morning, this second hour, is Anna Marie Golden, Director of Community Relations with Bay State Health. Welcome back again, Anna Marie.
Thank you, Tina.
So that was your song just for you.
Thank you.
Miss Golden.
Great way to start a day.
Yep, there you go with your own song. So we're talking about the Community Health Needs Assessment, or the CHNA for those in the know. And so you've spent months doing all these chats and forums and all of these other, gathering this information. So now you've got it. You've got the information. So now what? What happens?
So now we are hosting a forum here in Westfield, the Westfield Senior Center. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it will be Monday, June 17th from 5:30 to 7:30. And we're going to present our preliminary findings. So basically what we want to do is present to the community, this is what we heard. This is what we learned.
This is what you told us.
Exactly.
Okay.
And to validate that what we're sharing resonates before we actually finalize the reports. And they have to actually go before our Board of Trustees for approval.
Okay.
And then we'll publish them, and they'll go on our website, and we'll have hard copies available. And anyone is welcome to request a hard copy. We have to provide them for free.
Okay. And so let's talk about the forum at the Senior Center. So date, time, who can come, what do you do, how do you get there, all that good stuff.
Sure. So Monday, June 17th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Westfield Senior Center. We will have free transportation for those that may need it through Armbrook Village. So we ask that folks please contact 413-568-0000 by Friday, June 14th to request their ride to and from. We'll also have free on-site certified child care for folks that would like to attend but have young children. And that will be provided by the YMCA of Greater Westfield. Yep. So they can contact me actually at 413-794-7622 to reserve for child care. We're going to have dinner provided.
Okay.
So please come and enjoy a free meal. And the format will be a presentation by PowerPoint with our consultant team. We'll talk a little bit more about the process, the data we collected, and then we're going to present some highlights as well. And then we're also looking to have a small panel, the hospital representative, but some other stakeholders to talk about what their role was with the CHNA, and then how they and their organizations are going to use the information. So what we want to emphasize is, yes, this is, the hospital funded this. Yes, we're the promoter of this. Yeah. But this is a community resource, and so we want other organizations, municipalities, to utilize the information, whether it's applying for grants, whether it's for their own strategic planning efforts. So we really want to give examples of how different organizations in this community are going to be doing that. And then we'll break up into small groups and ask folks to reflect on what they heard. And we're going to then do some priority. We love stickers and posters. So we're going to give folks an opportunity to, if funding and resources, we're available, where would you want us to focus those? Obviously, there's there's going to be a lot of needs, and we can't do it all.
Everything, right? You can't do everything.
So we want the community's input to help us prioritize. And then specifically to Bay State Noble, what we're going to do is we're going to develop an implementation strategy. So we're going to work with our Community Benefit Advisory Council, which you serve on as well, to help us prioritize for grant making and other areas, and we'll be sharing that information also with Ron Bryant and his team as well in terms of their planning efforts for the hospital and in the local community as well.
Right. So the next step is so really what's happened is you've gathered this information. That information will be presented at the forum in terms of this is what we heard, and I'm sure we're all over the map with lots of different issues that people have even within those two subgroups of food insecurity and substance abuse and substance use and abuse. And so within that, and it does become, really tricky on, okay, so if there's some grant money available, how do you want to spend that? What is what's the best use of that grant money? Because we can't tackle everything. Right. So how do you want to do that? And it's more difficult than people realize, because I think a lot of times people think, well, great, there's money available, so just, fix the problem. Well, how do you go about fixing the problem? What's, what's the best strategy for that?
Right. And it takes time.
It does. Yep.
And so what we really want to look for are those areas that we can move the needle over the next 3 years.
Okay.
So that when we set out to do this again in 3 years, and hopefully in the next time we'll have a lot more data because it will be after the census.
Yes.
And then the Mass Department of Public Health has made a lot of improvements in terms of their data resources as well. So where we can hopefully see the needle move in some of these areas.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, Anna Marie, because I think when you mentioned the census, I don't know if people realize, I'm not sure that I realized until I took my present job how important those census figures are. And it's very challenging. And I've been at my job for 13 years, so I've seen it, at the end of the 2000s before we got to the 2010 census, and now I'm seeing it again in 2019. So much funding is based on your census numbers. Yeah. And what happens, just to give you an example in my world, so the grant money that I get through the state, through the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, is based on the 2010 census of how many older adults are living in the Westfield community. Now I know, and I can tell you, my number is really easy because it's 4 shy of 8,000. We're at 7,996. So roughly 8,000 older adults in the city of Westfield. But that's the 2010 census. So my funding is based on 8,000 older adults. But I know we've got more than 8,000 older adults because we know the population has shifted and we know it's changed. So, but we have to wait until the next census. And then it's like 2 years after that before we have all the official numbers. Right. And then all of that officially switches over so that we are now using the 2010 or the 2020 census. So it does get pretty complicated. And I think for anybody whose funding source, and a lot of funding is based on your census. Right. People have that's why it's so important to have an accurate number in your census.
It is.
And I think people don't, again, if you don't work in this world, it's not that you don't get it. You don't really think about it. Yeah. It's so important though.
And that's where, from our perspective, through the needs assessment, where we can do more community engagement and actually, going out and listening to residents and different groups of populations is so important because we are so limited by our data.
Yeah.
And so to actually go deep into the community as much as we can, it helps us.
Yeah, really important to do that.
Great.
All right, it is 7:49. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. So if you just are tuning in, my guest this morning is Anna Marie Golden, Director of Community Relations with Bay State Health. We're talking about the 2019 Community Health Needs Assessment and the upcoming Spring Forum, which we'll be hosting at the Senior Center on June 17th. We're going to take a short break. This one is by the Statler Brothers in honor of the birthday of Dawn Reed. This is Flowers on the Wall. When we come back, we'll finish up with Anna Marie. And following my program will be Mayor Sullivan's program. So stay tuned.
I keep hearing you're concerned about my happiness, but all that thought you're giving me is conscience, I guess. If I were walking in your shoes, I wouldn't worry none. Are you and your friends are worried about me? I'm having lots of fun, counting flowers on the wall. That don't bother me at all. Playing solitaire till dawn with the deck of 51. Smoking cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo. Now don't tell me I've nothing to do. Last night I dressed in tails, pretended I was on the town. As long as I can dream, it's hard to slow the swinger down. So please don't give a thought to me, I'm really doing fine. You can always find me here and having quite a time, counting flowers on the wall. That don't bother me at all. Playing solitaire till dawn with the deck of 51. Smoking cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo. Now don't tell me I've nothing to do. It's good to see you, I must go, I know I look a fright. Anyway, my eyes are not accustomed to this light, and my shoes are not accustomed to this hard concrete. So I must go back to my room and make my day complete, counting flowers on the wall. That don't bother me at all. Playing solitaire till dawn with the deck of 51. Smoking cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo. Now don't tell me I've nothing to do. Don't tell me I've nothing to do.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield. Underwriting for community radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com.
Friday mornings is something different on 89.5 FM. It's JP's Talk About Town.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University. This is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Good morning, Westfield. It is 7:53. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. My name is Tina Gorman. I'm your Wake Up Wednesday host. Before I go back to my guest, Anna Marie Golden, I do have just a couple of announcements that I wanted to finish up with. I wanted to remind folks that last week the Westfield Farmers Market started strong. So that is every Thursday afternoon from noon to 6 p.m. So they will be at the Episcopal Church of the Atonement, 36 Court Street tomorrow, from noon to 6 p.m. They had a nice crowd there last week, locally grown and organic fresh fruits and vegetables. They have eggs and baked goods and syrup and honey and goat products and jellies and jams and all kinds of stuff. They also have music that's grant funded through the Westfield Cultural Council. So we thank them and the Massachusetts Cultural Council. So that's tomorrow afternoon and every Thursday through the beginning of October. And I also had mentioned earlier that we're doing the Challenge Diabetes. We have the introductory presentation this afternoon at the Senior Center at 1 o'clock. That's open to the public. Chet Galaska from the Springfield YMCA will be the presenter, and that is sponsored by and funded through the Westfield Lions Club. So I also want to promote they have an upcoming benefit dance benefit to raise money for their diabetes awareness. That's Sunday, June 9th from 2 to 6 p.m. It's $10 per person at Shaker Farms Country Club. So it's a dance showcase. They'll be doing the hustle, the tango, the waltz, the foxtrot. And the the $10 fee includes a swing dance lesson at 2 p.m. So for anybody who wants to join in and do a little dancing themselves, you can certainly do that. So there's more information on the Lions Club Facebook, or you can email them at westfieldcentenniallions@gmail.com. But I also have the information for this on the bulletin board in the vestibule at the Senior Center. So if you're interested in that, or if you have questions, you can give me a call or come and see me, and I will put you in touch with Roxanne Bradley, who is handling the dance showcase this Sunday. My guest this morning, as I said, is Anna Marie Golden from Bay State Health, and we're talking about the Community Health Needs Assessment. The Spring Forum, as Anna Marie mentioned, is Monday, June 17th at the Senior Center. You are asking people to RSVP, is that correct?
We are. It's not required.
Okay,
but
just so we can kind of get an idea of numbers.
Because we're going to order food and materials, so it just helps us plan. But, but by no means, if you don't RSVP, please.
Yeah, and you know what? If the easiest thing, because I know not all my seniors are computer savvy. Yep. I know some of them will want to come. If you just give us a call at the Senior Center, we'll keep a list, and I can give that number to Anna Marie. Great. If you do need transportation, let us know that as well. We'll give you the number for Armbrook Village that's supplying the transportation. We'll give you the number for Beth Cardillo. It's really easy. 568-0000. It's one of the only numbers that I can remember for any of my professional colleagues. I love Beth. It's like 568-0000. So if you need transportation, don't let that be an issue, because you are certainly welcome on the 17th at 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And moving forward, Anne Marie, what happens after all? So we'll do the forum in a couple of weeks.
Over the summer, we're going to finalize the written report.
Okay.
And then we'll be bringing them forward to our Bay State Health Board of Trustees in September.
Okay.
Where they'll hopefully give the
stamp of approval.
Yep. And then we'll finalize them. They'll go on our website, and then we'll also get hard copies printed.
Nice.
And we'll, if folks would like to request a hard copy, they're welcome to do so.
And you know what I would love to do? I look at that as like one of our coffee table books in the Fireside Lounge. We like to do that. We have like the business and industry edition of the Westfield News as that. We just did the 350th. So we keep those in the Fireside Lounge with a do not remove sticker. So great. People are welcome. And I know that people really, even some of the city documents that, when they put together different books and things, they'll give us a copy. That way we can keep it, and people leaf through those as they're sitting there waiting. So I would love to get a couple copies.
Absolutely.
That would be great. Perfect.
Absolutely. And then the hospital and our Community Benefit Advisory Council will be developing our implementation strategy. So looking at all the findings and then selecting 2 to 3 areas that we want to focus on.
Perfect. So it seems to me, Anna Marie, that what we'll be able to do is invite you back maybe in 6 months or so to kind of give us, just to give us an update on how things are going along with this process. And then you'll really be able to give us some details on those two topics, the topic of substance use and abuse and the topic of food insecurity. Mm-hmm. And, okay, so here's what we found, and here's what we're doing, and here's how the plan is working. So I think that's just a great connection for people to keep, to keep updated on the progress that you're making.
Great. I think that's a great idea. I'd love to come back.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing your expertise in this whole process. And as I said, I think it's just amazing that the hospitals are doing this, because it really, we like to think of our own little Bay State Noble Hospital as our community hospital. My husband says I'm very possessive about all these things. He goes, Tina, do you realize you refer to everything as like my senior center, my hospital, my this, my that? But I said, I picked that up when I started working in Westfield, because we are a very possessive community. So But I just appreciate the fact that the hospital is so in tune with the community and what the needs and desires and looking for input from the community.
The reality is clinical care, as you mentioned earlier, hospitals are where people go when they're sick, right? Or they need help. But the reality is that the rest of our health is impacted by where we live, where we play, where we learn, right? And not just in the four walls of our clinics, of our hospitals. And so if we're going to treat people holistically, we need to look at health holistically. And so that's what this process helps us do.
That is a great way to end it. I couldn't have said it any better. Anna Marie Golden, thank you so much. It is 8 o'clock. You're listening to WSKB 89.5 FM radio for the Westfield masses. Mayor Sullivan and Denny Akins are up next with whatever the mayor's show is called, which I can't really remember, to be perfectly honest with you. Pete, give me a... Where are you, Pete?
It's called On the Town.
On the Town. There you go. I couldn't remember. All I could think of was Rock on Westfield. That's Harry Rock's show. I have all these celebrities all mixed up. All right. Have a good one. I will be back next week.